So we have been working from the book, The Power of Myth, by Joseph Campbell, these wonderful interviews of Bill Moyers and Joseph Campbell. For those of us of a certain age, we remember in the 80s when it was all over the place. And so it's been really fun to go back and revisit this book and these delightful, intelligent, inspired conversations. I find myself reading this dialogue back and forth and just being touched and moved, but it's not real linear, and I've been feeling like my talks have followed that format. So I'm hoping that today something I says makes sense in some format or some framework for you today. I need to address an issue first and foremost, because I know you cannot ever really listen to what I'm saying until you figure out what I'm wearing or what I'm doing or why he looks this way. So some of you know that I have been preparing for a half marathon. So on June 7th, which is 5 weeks away, I'm going to run the half marathon in Sun Valley. So I was out running the other day near a nuclear power plant, and no, I'm kidding. I thought, soon I'll start, I'm up to about 25 miles a week, 9 mile runs at a time. So soon I'll be going outside. So I thought, well, I'll get a jump and get a little tan going on here before. I'm assuming we are going to have sunny weather at some point, right? It will come. And so this is a great lesson in that which I fear the most has come upon me. So my fear of getting a sunburn when I go running, I just did it inside instead of outside. So I'm fine. I will stop glowing, I'm hoping, in a day or so, and look like a normal person again. So now we can have the conversation, okay? See, don't you feel better? Okay, that question's answered. So today we get to look at the goddess energy. We've been looking at, again, the power of myth and looking at that sacred journey that we're all on. The reason I love Joseph Campbell so much is he has helped me have such insight and wisdom into the journey that we're all on. And the journey is that we leave our known and we go on to some kind of a journey where we pass a point where we must go deeper. And then we find ourselves in the road of trials where we're challenged, where we're, think about great movies or great stories. There's got to be some drama, right? Or otherwise it's just boring story, right? So there's some drama, and then there comes a point for every hero or heroine when they enter into the realm called the supreme ordeal. That place where we are left with ourself and have to figure out who we are and what our life is about and what it means. As I always like to say, sometimes that journey is an inner longing, a calling to the unknown, the adventurer spirit. And sometimes it is life thrust upon us where life as we have known it no longer works. Either way, we're all on it. And so when we go through that journey and we move through the supreme ordeal, it is on the other side of the supreme ordeal that we find the gift. And when we find the gift, that's when we can return home. But we return home not as the same person that left, but rather having achieved a level of mastery. We have learned something. So I say all of us are on this journey, in this room I believe, on this journey called, how do we master being spiritual human beings? And sometimes we want to go one way, and other times we want to go one way, and the trick is to learn, I believe, how we bring that spiritual awareness into our daily living. So one of the reasons I appreciate this model, in fact, the next book, maybe this third book, I'm into a book writing phase right now, and is going to be, I think it's going to be called something like Ernest Holmes meets Joseph Campbell, right? Because both of them bring truth in different ways. So for me as a metaphysician, in the early days when I came into metaphysics, we were very much into the est phase. I don't know if any of you went through some of those trainings where you had to stay there and confront yourself and you could not use the bathroom because you were just avoiding what was really going on. Remember those? No water, no restroom breaks, nothing. You're going to get it, And so our Science of Mind version was, you will manifest, by golly. You will bring forth your highest good. Unless you're tall and thin and rich and driving a BMW, clearly something's wrong with your consciousness. Remember those days? Mm-hmm. Turns out there's a gentler way. And yet there was powerful knowledge that came out of that. So in looking at this, I've come to appreciate that sometimes the soul's journey is taking us through those things that we would never consciously try to create. And so for some, it may be dealing with addiction. For others, it's dealing with a bankruptcy or a loss. Some others, a death or a divorce or something where life got changed and you're like, but I was doing everything you said, Marty. I was praying. I was meditating. I was affirming like there was no tomorrow. I even almost tithed. I mean, you know. I know. I was crazy. Don't go crazy on me here, right? Why is this happening? But you see, if we understand that our soul's journey is not about the outer experience, but about the inner experience, we begin to have a different appreciation. And these same spiritual tools that we have been taught become a way of enhancing our lives in a different sort of way. So I just need to disclaim right up front, I'm going to use probably every possible stereotype today, every broad generalization. I'm going to sweep with broad strokes. So somewhere in that I will offend somebody. And so I'm just going to get out. I apologize. Forgive me. Because I got to give you like 20,000 years of history in just in the next 20 minutes. So, you know, you got to take some liberties with the facts. As I've always said, I never let the facts get in the way of my argument, right? So think about, in the history of humanity, there was a time when the worship was around the goddess energy. As we became a more agrarian group of people, we learned to plant planting and sowing and reaping and all those sorts of things. It made sense that the Mother Earth was the source of all. And so very much the mythology of the time was about the goddess, the mother wisdom, the divine energy as the source of all that was, right? And so archaeologists tell us they find all of these goddess images and all that sort of thing. Not a lot of God images. Now, as life was unfolding and there was some changes in learning to shepherd and learning to be roving, then the energy of conquest began to take place. And so some of there was more of a masculine energy that came forward, and there was gods that reflected that. And so when we would see that there would be marauding bands that would go in and overtake groups of people. And so you began to see in the mythological terms a much more aggressive forms of gods. Now, through the ages, there's been many, many different types of gods, many beliefs in gods. The idea of one God is really a relatively new convention. And so as these technology, or as this mythology is developing, you begin to see sort of this warfare between, I like to call it, my God is bigger and more powerful than your God, right? There was, even in the Jewish tradition, Yahweh was a God. And when you understand that reading some of the Old Testament, you see kind of the competition that was going on between Baal and between this God and that God. They're saying, no, 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 no. Our God is the one God. Most powerful. So when you're reading your Bible, because I know you guys do, I know, in your spare time, that's what you do. You grab that Bible and go, let's look at Exodus and Deuteronomy. What the heck? Let's just go for all of it. But you see this conflict that was going on. Now, we are given 10 commandments, and we are told, thou shalt not have any gods before me. Good. Thou shalt not kill. Wonderful. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife. Fabulous. And 7 more. Who can remember all of them, right? And in that story, if you read just a little further, you find the fine print. Because what you begin to realize is, thou shalt not kill in your community. If you're abroad, then I will be on your side if the cause is just. And so we as humans have this horrible history of killing each other in the name of God. We've had wars throughout time about my God versus your God, and somehow, even though we're not supposed to kill, if we're doing it in the name of God, apparently there's an escape clause and it's okay, right? And as I was speaking of recently, even if you look at the Abrahamic religions of Judaism and Islam and Christianity, they all share a common heritage, and yet look to the Middle East and you see this is not a place of peace and joy and wonder to this day. So you look at that and you begin to say, aha, perhaps there's another way. Now, a number of years ago, a wonderful book was written called The Chalice and the Blade by Riane Reisler. A brilliant, if you want real facts, this would be a good book to read, about the evolution of the goddess energy into the masculine energy, the chalice being the feminine, and the chalice and the blade being the masculine, the idea of nurturer versus conqueror. You see, even in our traditional Christian or our Judeo-Christian Bible, they're said, go out and have dominion over the world. Dominion has the same root as domination. Understand that. We have had sort of an attitude that we can take what is ours. We can conquest, we can do what we want to do because God said it's cool. Right? Then we realize that, that may not be the best strategy. I spoke a number of weeks ago about what I believe was a fundamental shift in consciousness for humanity that happened about 50 years ago, when we began to receive images from space of this wonderful, beautiful green planet that we live on that is one. We actually refer to her as Mother Earth, don't we? And I think there was a consciousness that happened. You see, the domination model works as long as you're tribal. Our group against their group, right? When you begin to realize there's really only one tribe here, something has to shift. So Riane Reisler in this wonderful book says, we are now entering into a new era, a new possibility, a new time, that it is not that we need to get back to being a goddess society, but rather we have to move from the domination model into a partnership model. That it is about finding the balance between the masculine and feminine energies. It is about finding the balance between the wholeness of who we are. So what does that look like? How does that show up? Well, one of the terms you hear a lot these days is the idea of Gaia. And Gaia comes from Greek mythology. Gaia was the goddess of the earth. And so you're hearing that term used a lot these days, aren't you? About the Gaia energy, about the loving energy, because I believe we're profoundly aware that we have this sacred world that we are all a part of, and that we better figure out some things here pretty soon, because, as I have said, you can't sink half the ship, right? That's the awareness. So in looking at that, by the way, Gaia, you know how we will go from Greek gods and goddesses and then there's Latin gods and goddesses that are basically the same. The names have been changed to protect the innocent. So Gaia is then Terra in the Latin, which is where we have the term terra firma, territory, all those ideas around land and around earth come out of that thing. Little word study there, just in case you need sparkling cocktail conversation later. So in this book, Reisler's helping us to understand that it is time now for humanity to evolve to our next level of being together. What you see, if you notice, over what's happened over the last 100 years or so, not done by any means, but there has been the rise of the feminine. Women said, hey, we'd like to vote. I know. That's what I said. What? What? And while we're at it, we want to drive. And I was like, no, that's just a bridge too far. Now, is that journey complete? Absolutely not. We only have to look around the world to see that there is not equality among the sexes yet. But the energetic is moving. It is happening. There's an evolution of thought, an evolution of being together. We're watching in our own country how women are assuming more and more positions of power. We're having more women in Congress, more women in the Senate. And it's my personal belief that our next president will be a woman. Now, I don't know who that woman will be. There's some likely contenders. That's not my job to figure out. But I just have this sense that the time is now, that there's an awareness and an opening that says, aha. So then I was thinking about that. How interesting would that be? Because, Angela Merkel in Germany is the chancellor. Christine Lagarde, who's currently with the IMF, is rumored to be thinking about running for president of France. And Hillary, or some other Hillary light, will be, our president. And you think about, wouldn't that be an interesting thing to have three of the most powerful nations in the world to be led by women? So, who knew, right? Now, I don't know if that's going to happen, but what I do know is happening is there is an energetic, they talk about the age of Aquarius, they talk about this movement forward. How does that relate to us personally? We are all in the same position of learning to balance our energies. What we are learning and what we know is that we are all some combination of masculine and feminine energy. It's not about male, female, it's about masculine and feminine energy. Masculine energy is creative, it is powerful, it is directive, it is get out there and kill something or make something happen, right? Feminine energy is nurturing and welcoming and allowing things to foster and to grow. They both have their place. So as Rihanna is saying, we're not needing to go this way. We're needing to find that balance between the masculine and feminine energies. I watch for us as a spiritual teaching, the science of mind. As I said, when I came into the teaching, the mindset at that time was like, make your life work. You are powerful. Make your life work. Boss that universe around. Let them know who's boss, right? Holmes said, there is a power for good greater than you are, and you can use it. We can use spiritual principle to create the life we want. How many of you came in under that program? Right? And now there's a new emergence taking place around this idea of visioning, about being open and receptive from the awareness that divine intelligence knows how to create. That we do not have to take a seed and put it in the soil and then yell at it. Grow! Grow now! Make it happen! Right? That there's actually some principles of life that say if you will take a seed and give it and cultivate it and provide a proper environment, the natural and only outcome can be one of growth and fulfillment. Some of us are beginning to understand that there is this same process taking place within our own spiritual life, that we are responsible for the seed that we want to plant. But we don't have to make that seed grow. Rather, we can surrender to that. We can nurture that. We can realize that we need to weed our own garden from any of the life forms that are crowding out the life that we want. And if we will cultivate that consciousness, just like we cultivate our gardens, then the growth that we seek occurs naturally and joyously and easily. This is that balancing. We see what's happening is that there is a value taking place. For many, many years, the consciousness of the planet was what matters is your logical thinking. Right? Use your head, people would say. Right? Think this through. That the logic, the logos mind of A plus B plus C equals D. And it follows sequentially and it makes it happen and that is valued. And then one of you, I know many of you in your little world said, I'm seeing people. I'm having ideas and awarenesses that are just coming to me. And well-meaning, loving people said, well, be practical. You'll never get anywhere that way. Learn to type, right? But you see what I'm understanding is there is a tremendous capacity for logical thinking. It's a wonderful thing. But I'm learning to balance that with my intuitive nature because I find in the two I get greater wisdom. This is the balancing of the masculine and feminine energies. So in the Tao tradition, we have the yin and the yang. And I love that symbol. For me, it's one of the most powerful spiritual symbols because what it has in the whole, in the circle, is the dark and the light. It has the masculine, it has the feminine, it has the yin and the yang. It has the polarities of, if you want to think of it, negative and positive polarities, all within the one. But within each component, there is the dot of the other, which is a powerful symbol that we all have a balancing. And so when we are looking in Taoism, they're saying find the Tao, find the middle way, find the place of balance. I believe that this is what's happening for us as a collective, is that we are called to move into this next level of being. And we are being called to move into this next way of being in the world, that we need to find solutions that are not about how do we kick everybody else's butt, spiritual term, and to how do we learn to cooperate? How do we learn to bring forth the highest good that serves all humanity? This is the time in which we live. And I know when we look out at the world, it can look pretty chaotic. It can look like, will we get there? I don't know. But I do know in my own life, there have been times when the still small voice came to me and said, do this. And I lovingly said, I don't want to. No, surely you're not, you must jest. I don't want to. The still small voice comes back a little louder now and says, do this. No, I'm not going to. So then crisis occurs in my life. I'm like, well, maybe I should do this. And so it occurred to me at some point along the spiritual journey, what if I just did it when it was a still small voice? What if I didn't make the universe crank up the volume, didn't make my soul have to get my attention, and just followed that intuitive guidance that we're all receiving? So now, what I'm finding, and what many of us are finding, is that as we balance, see, it's not getting rid of logic, it's not just doing things, but it's about balancing. How am I feeling? What's the sense that I'm getting about my life, about what's being called forth, about what's being wanting to be made known? And then to realize that I can use my logical faculties to begin to put into action plans and possibilities to bring that divine idea into what place. So it's happening for us individually. It's happening for us collectively. Certainly we're sensing this as a spiritual community, that Spirit is calling us to this next level of expression. I'm experiencing it profoundly in my own life, that Spirit is saying to me, it is time, and I'm tired of arguing with you. It says the Spirit saying, you know you're going to do it. You know you're going to do it, right? So we could just do it now, right? But it's like time that my old paradigm of how I am and all that sort of thing is falling away so that I can step into this next level of ministry, that this center can step into its next level of ministry. And I want to tell you, I'm going to spend some time soon, not today, but we are being called to a much higher level of participation in the world than we have currently done. I think we've, in some ways, as a collective consciousness of the little Salt Lake Center for Spiritual Living, have taken some solace in we're this best-kept secret. That we're this wonderful, little, odd, quirky group of people. But you see, well, that's true. That has not changed. But it turns out there's a whole bunch of odd, quirky people in the world who are having these same awakenings. And so we have a possibility and a responsibility to bring greater awareness, greater truth into the world, to give those who are seeking another spiritual way of being, whose old paradigms are falling away and are seeking ways to be in greater experience of the divine, that we are being called to be that center in Utah at least, right? So what we discover about paradigms, as somebody recently reminded me, that if we always do what we've always done, we'll always get what we've always got, right? And then we're confused by that. But I did it with more effort. I really struggled through it this time, right? It's like, no, we're being called to be different. So I don't know if you're sensing this in your own life, but I am certainly, and I'm watching it, it seems like with everybody around me who are saying, oh, something big is happening. And if you're spiritually aware at all, you're aware that something big is happening. And we're all trying to find our place in that greater possibility that is emergent. We're trying to make sense of, and how do we create that balance? So I remind you, in the Taoist tradition, it's always in the middle way. It is always the balancing of that masculine and feminine energy. Wisdom teaches us that wisdom teaches us when to use the directive, creative essence, and when to use the receptive, nurturing essence. Which, by the way, wisdom shows up early on in the Bible. She was there in the beginning under the name of Sophia. So there's a few goddesses in the Bible. You just have to look a little harder for them. But they're there. Because it's natural, it's important, it's necessary. Even in the Christian or the Catholic tradition, where you have this odd trinity, if you ask me, of a Father, of a Son, and of a Holy Spirit. Now, I wasn't great in biology, but I knew there was a Father, there was a Mother, there was a Son, right? So even in that movement toward the patriarchal system, kind of the feminine energies got set aside. Eve got blamed for everything. You know, it's all Eve. It's all her fault. If you got a problem, blame Eve. Now, is that a guy thing or what? You can tell the men wrote this book. But then there's also the emergence, even in that in mythological terms, of the Virgin Mary, of Mary who really rises to this level of sainthood, of being that balancing feminine energy. As Jean Houston talks about, sometimes she grew up Catholic, and she says, you know, all the women in our group, we knew, you want to get something done, you take it right to Mary. Jesus is great, but if you want to get something done, take it to a woman, right? She knew. And so a lot of people, there's a lot of healing essence that comes out of the Mary energetic. All talking mythological terms, so, you know, do not email me. I know I'm being completely inappropriate today. I get it. But I just want us to see the bigger picture, that something is emerging. And so this partnership way we're looking at, if I look at it in my own life, I notice that there are still parts of my consciousness that would like to dominate. That if we're having a different point of view, there's a part of me that would like to squash you like a bug so I can have my way. I don't like to tell people this, but we're all friends. Right? That I'm going to overcome you instead of to listen and to allow to see if perhaps there's a greater possibility that is seeking to emerge through your point of view and my point of view. And rather than you be right or me be right, what if there's a greater truth that is seeking its emergence through the conflict that we're experiencing. When I'm willing to move into that awareness, into that consciousness, then I find that becomes the realm of possibility. That becomes the realm of invention. That becomes the realm of creation. And so you can look at it individually, you can look at it collectively. I don't know that it makes sense for us to keep killing each other all the time. It helps with population control, but I don't think it's good for the planet, right? So if you, like I am, are experiencing this, I just would invite you to honor the totality of your being. The masculine aspects of yourself, the feminine aspects of yourself, the intuitive part of yourself, the intellectual part of yourself. There's a balancing that is seeking to make itself known. And I feel like that is what is taking place on the planet. I wanted to close today with a beautiful poem. I've read it before, but I love this. And it's from St. Francis. Now, we all know, Lord, let me be instrument, but this is the Canticle of the Sun. And what I love in this poetry is he sees the masculine and the feminine in all of life, and he calls it forth. So I want to read this in closing, and then we'll go into prayer. Most High, all-powerful sweet Lord, yours is the praise, the glory, and the honor, and every blessing. Be praised, my Lord, for all your creatures, and first for Brother Sun, who makes the days bright and luminous. And he is beautiful and radiant with great splendor. He is the image of you, Most High. Be praised, my Lord, for Sister Moon and the stars. In the sky you have made them brilliant and precious and beautiful. Be praised, my Lord, for Brother Wind, and for the air both cloudy and serene, and every kind of weather, through which you give nourishment to your creatures. Be praised, my Lord, for Sister Water, who is very useful and humble and precious and chaste. Be praised, my Lord, for Brother Fire, through whom you illuminate the night, and he is beautiful and joyous, and robust and strong. Be praised, my Lord, for our sister, Mother Earth, who nourishes us and watches over us, and brings forth various fruits with colored flowers and herbs. Be praised, my Lord, for those who forgive through your love and bear sickness and tribulation. Blessed are those who endure in peace, for they will be crowned by you, Most High. Be praised, my Lord, for our sister bodily death, for whom no living thing can escape. Blessed are those whom she finds doing your most holy will, and for the second death cannot harm them. Praise and bless my Lord, and give thanks to him and serve him with great humility. And so as we simply move into that divine awareness, aware of the Mother, Father, God principle, the divine wisdom and intelligence that is the source and the substance of all that is, the one that is neither masculine nor feminine but is both, that expresses as life itself. And as we are reminded this moment, there is only one life, and it is in this life that we live and move and have our being. That there is only one mind, and it is this mind in which we draw our thinking and our intuitive being. That there is only one, and we are a part of that. And that infinite wisdom knows how to express itself into form and into being. So we open our hearts in this moment. We open our minds. We throw open the very portal of our soul to just remember our divine origin. To know that all that we seek is already provided. That when we knock, the door is open. And so we're simply aware in this moment there is a presence of absolute unconditional love. As we forgive ourselves, we find it easy to forgive others. We choose to live in a state of unconditional love and acceptance. We know our hearts are healed and transformed. Our lives are healed and transformed. Our relationships, our families are healed and transformed through the power of this unconditional love. We make it welcome in our lives. We recognize and know the divine wholeness is the very origin of who we are. And so we allow that wholeness to reveal itself as health, as well-being, as vitality. We know that in this very moment we are abundant beings. For abundance is a quality of the divine. And we live and move and have our being in the presence of abundance. So we honor and celebrate the many ways that our greater good comes to us and shows up in our lives. We make it welcome. Joyously we give, graciously we receive of this entire bounty that we have been given. We allow our lives to be healed and transformed. And I'm inviting you in this moment, if there is a burden that you are carrying on your heart, perhaps now is the time to surrender that, to release that, to allow the divine to make itself known more fully than ever before, to trust in divine wisdom to reveal itself through us, as us now. How good it is to know this truth. We are reminded that we are blessed beings. We live in a state of grace as we awaken to that which is. And so we give many thanks for the blessings in our lives, both those seen and unseen. And we extend a blessing. We start with this community, with this spiritual community formed around a divine idea that we might be a bright light in the world. We know that all that is necessary for our fulfillment is already provided. We give great thanks. We extend a blessing to our brothers and sisters around the planet this day. We're holding that high vision for a world that works for all, for a planet at peace, for the Gaia energy to emerge triumphant. We bless in this moment all priests, all priestesses, all rabbis, all ministers, all teachers of every faith. For we know there are many pathways to the divine, and so we honor and celebrate them all. We know that where two or more are gathered, the presence of the I Am is there, and we name it good. So for all of these blessings and so many more, I'm simply giving thanks. I'm releasing this word into the law of mind, knowing that it is so. As together we say, and so it is.